I'm so excited for our last session of day 3, or I should say really our last session from a college or company, and that's the University of Delaware. I'm really excited to introduce these two ladies. They're so passionate about their university and excited to share it with you. So I'm gonna go ahead and hand it over to Rachel and Nakia with University of Delaware to share a little bit more about what makes University of Delaware unique and a special place for you to consider as your next step after high school. So ladies, welcome and please take it away.
Thank you, Sarah. Hello, everyone. My name is Rachel Coppola, and I am the Senior Associate Director at the University of Delaware Career Center. And I'm joined by my colleague, Nakia Mack, who was having audio issues. So I'm going to pause and ask her to introduce herself just so we can see if her audio is working while I share my screen.
Absolutely. I hope you all can hear me. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to be here. As Rachel mentioned, my name is Nakia Mack. I'm the Director of Pre-College Programs in the Office of Admissions at the University of Delaware. I'm really excited to be sharing some what we hope will be useful information that you can walk away with this afternoon. As Rachel is pulling up that information, we will be hopefully at the end, we'll have time to answer some questions that you have. And I see Sarah, thank you so much, already put a note there about dropping questions in the chat box. So at this point, Rachel, and it sounds like you can hear me, right? All good to go, set. All right. So I'm going to throw this back over to you.
All right. And Nakia, can you see my screen? Did I share properly?
I sure can. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. All right. So again, like Sarah mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit today about, the University of Delaware, but also who you are as a student and what's important to you and how to think about taking that and finding a career and purpose. So this is one of my favorite quotes because, when you think about your future and you think about all of the influences that can come to bear on your future, ultimately, you will be the one that makes the decision about what you want to do and who you are and your place in the world. So, all pressures aside, we really want you to think about the only thing that you have to think about is what you want to become, right? You have to decide. So then how do you do that? How do you decide what to be? So today we're going to talk about two main things. We're going to examine different ways of thinking about and researching career possibilities. And we're also going to hopefully leave you today with some ways to utilize reflective questions and exercises, and also to tap into some resources to think about majors and careers. So these jobs I have up here: design ethicist, podcast producer, employment brand manager, genetic counselor, they all have something in common, even though they're across various disciplines and the people that are doing this work come from a lot of different backgrounds, right? But they all have three things in common. One, they didn't exist 10 years ago. So for a lot of people sitting around thinking about, especially high school students and even some college students I talk to, they're like, well, what do I do with my life? Well, how do I figure this out? And sometimes my answer is, you won't figure it out right now. The answer doesn't come right now. If someone who was a design ethicist right now was in high school, they wouldn't know about that career when they were in high school. It didn't exist. So how would they know that that's what they wanted to do, even though they are successfully doing it now? So again, sometimes our future hasn't been laid out for us because innovation and the way we operate in the world and the things that we like and bringing all that stuff together is going to create opportunity and sometimes create positions and careers that we just can't think about in our heads at the moment. So that's one thing all of these careers have in common: they didn't exist. A second thing they had in common is the fact that they're not majors. So again, if I was in high school and I was wanting to become a genetic counselor, that's not something I'm going to go, do you have a major in genetic counseling? Right? The major might be in something science-based, but it's not necessarily genetic counseling. Or even when you think about becoming an engineer, there's not a major artificial intelligence engineering major. It's an engineer. And then there's different types of engineer. There's civil and environmental and things like that. So that person who is now an artificial intelligence engineer, if you look at their college degree, it doesn't say artificial intelligence engineer. the cloud architect. It doesn't say that they went to school to become a cloud architect. They might have studied computer information systems or management information systems. And so again, thinking about who you are going to be in the future, you can't always count on a major telling you that. And in fact, approximately, or I think it's about more than 50% of people actually work in fields they don't have a degree in. So the degree that you are getting when you get to college may not be the life career that you are doing when you leave college. I am an example of that. I have a degree, my undergraduate degree is in history. And I use my history degree all the time in my working careers because I study the history of careers. I study where careers come from, how they operate in the world, how different fields come to be, all of that. And so even though I'm not using a history degree in that traditional way, I'm not a teacher, I don't work in a museum, I use my degree all the time in my work in education. The third thing these jobs have in common, most people didn't know what these fields were. They didn't know that they were going to be doing this stuff when they were in high school. So again, I say, figuring this out isn't necessarily something that's going to happen just like that. It's not an overnight process. So you might be thinking then, how am I going to figure this out, right? When I look at this picture of a brain, right, it reminds me of a maze, which is why I kind of like it. It's a little weird, but I like it because it reminds me of a maze, right? And when you think about a maze, you think about the fact that you enter a maze on one side and you come out on the other. You don't freak out when you hit a wall or a dead end. Think about those corn mazes. I don't know if anybody's gonna go out this weekend and do a corn maze or a hay maze or something like that, right? You run into a wall, you don't freak out. You go, okay, that's not the right way. I'm gonna go someplace else, right? You don't freak out. You know it's not a dead end. You know that eventually you'll pivot and go someplace else. And I want you to think about that when you think about how you're approaching your career, right? You should think about finding a career as a way of kind of making your way through this maze of life. Sometimes figuring out what you don't want to do is just as important as figuring out what you do want to do. So running into that wall is a good thing. Okay, this is not the right way. I'm gonna pivot. I thought I wanted to become, an engineer, but I like math, but maybe that's not what I want to do, right? So what are other things I can do with that, with my love of math? So I want you to think about this. And this is I love quotes, so obviously I have another quote here. To get lost is to learn the way. So don't let the anxiety of not knowing keep you from moving forward. Just pivot, ask new questions, talk to different people, right? There's a couple things that, as a career counselor now, the way that I approach talking to students about careers is helping you think about these things. All individuals, everybody has unique characteristics related to things like what they're interested in, what they're able to do, what they need in their life, what they value, what's important to them, and their personality. Obviously, I'm a talker. So for me, finding a field where I was going to be able to talk and interact with people and help people, that was important to me, right? Think about this, all occupations now. So not only do we as individuals have these unique characteristics, occupations have unique characteristics related to work tasks, skills required, demands, and rewards, right? So for me, as a talker who likes to help people, working in a field that allows me to present, to counsel, to help people, right? I need a field that allows me to do that. And then the third thing I want you to think about is people find greatest satisfaction when there's a match between who they are and what they do. So if you can imagine someone like me working in a cubicle, I would probably be miserable. I'd be looking around, who can I talk to? How can I help? I got to get out of here, right? Although I have worked with students who the idea of talking to people, interacting every day, they don't like that. The idea of being in a cubicle on their computer, solving a problem, that's what gets them excited. That's what they value. So again, thinking about these things, my unique characteristics, the jobs and those unique characteristics, and then figuring out how do I mold those two. And again, you're going to get lost. That's okay. So this Venn diagram can seem a bit daunting. I talked with Nakia, I almost didn't use it because I was like, there's a lot of stuff going on here. But it lays out how you might come to find your career, your calling, your potential, or a cause. So you'll see those 4 boxes, right? But they want you to do that by considering what you love, what your strengths are, what you could get paid for, and what the world needs, okay? So this is a pictorial explanation. So it's a picture of what you can do to find the intersection of all these 4 traits, and ultimately that star, that sun in the middle, ultimately find your purpose. Okay. I don't want you to leave this presentation thinking that you will find one career or purpose. Most people have multiple careers, multiple ways of living and ways of making a living and ways of doing jobs, right? In a way, it's almost like we're just as complicated as our brain. Think about that brain picture I showed right? A couple slides back, right? Brains are complicated. We are complicated, and that's good. So if you think about most successful people that you know, people, whether there's family members or even well-known people like Oprah or Elon Musk or the late John Lewis, they didn't go to college, graduate, and do one thing with their lives, right? They did a lot of things, and so can you. And one way is to start thinking about these things, these 4 questions. So I want to walk you through a couple of examples of doing that. All right, so what I love, and this is just an example, my dog. So, and you can do this for yourself. I actually have a takeaway sheet that I'm going to share with you all a little bit later. What I love, this student loves their dog. They love volunteering at the SPCA, and they just love animals in general. What their strengths are. Oh, I went too fast. What their strengths are. Compassion. Their friends always say, oh, you're so nice. You always care about other people. Their determination. They're doing what they say they're going to do. They're going to get things done, right? They love biology. They love chemistry. So they're really interested in science. What does the world need, right? So I kind of take that question and I tweak it a little bit. So for me, it's not just what the world needs, because sometimes we need to think a little bit smaller, right? Maybe it's your country or your state or your city or your neighborhood. So if thinking about what the world needs is too big, bring it down a little bit. What does my neighborhood need? So this person thinks, I need a place in my neighborhood for people to take care of their pets. They always have to travel really far when their dog is sick or to board their cat or whatever it is. So what can I get paid for? I can get paid for caring for animals and figuring out how to do that. What am I? I'm a veterinarian, right? So I've taken my passion, what I love, my strengths, what my area needs, my world, and what I could get paid for. And I've combined that and found a career. We're going to do that again. What I love, obviously, I have a dog. I love my dog. Hanging out in my park. So I like to be outside. I don't like to be inside. Being indoors, the student wants to be out. The student loves playing video games, right? They after school, that's where they are. They're in Fortnite or, Super Smash Brothers or whatever it is, right? What else do they love? What are their strengths? They like telling people what to do, like leading others. Their friends, they're always like, we should do this. And their friends are like, okay, let's go do that. And when their friends get into fights, they're the ones that's breaking it up. Oh, don't go there. We need to talk about that. Let's look at both sides. Let's come to an agreement, right? And this student also loves geography, getting out there and exploring the world. So remember, they like going in the park, they're looking at maps and recognizing different spaces and places. So what does the neighborhood need? What does their city need in this case? Better protection for urban parks. I live in a neighborhood and I don't want my park to go away, right? I like being able to go out there and play on the swings and hang out and walk through a trail or whatever. I need that, right? I want those open spaces. That's what the student is saying. So what can they get paid for? Well, they could get paid for working with groups and citizens and companies to protect certain areas of the city, to organize or plan certain areas of the city to make sure that they're not just buildings and parking lots, that there's actually green spaces. So what are they? They're a conservation land manager, right? So again, career paths coming together based on loves, strengths, neighborhoods, or what the world needs, and what they might get paid for. We've got one more. I switched it up a little bit because, cats might be there. Maybe somebody out there is a cat lover, right? What I love. So this student loves their cat. They love playing video games. Notice I'm keeping some things similar. There's some themes going on. So they love cats. They love playing video games. They love looking stuff up on the internet. They're always like researching something, especially funny animal videos, right? What are their strengths? They're really good in math. They like problem solving, and they're a pretty creative person. What do they think the world needs, or the city, or whatever? They think they would like to have a way for people to play with their pets more and use technology. Since everybody's on the phone, I'm on my phone all the time. Maybe I could figure out a way to play with my cat or play with my animal and also, be on my phone, because I don't want to put my phone down. Although you should put your phones down sometimes. So what can they get paid for? Creating new interactive games and programs that focus on animals. So what are they? They're an app developer. So I want you to notice there's a theme in the way that I did this. All three of them were animal lovers, but they all ended up doing very different things with their career because they didn't base their career based on one thing. They looked at other things. What were their strengths? What other things that they love? So there's a lot of intersections that can happen when you think about careers. So what can you do to figure this out for yourself? There's 4 things you can do here. You can talk to people. I'm a big proponent of informational interviewing. Sometimes people call them career conversations, but they're basically times where you pick the brain of someone that's doing work that you find interesting. Doesn't mean you have to do what they're doing. You might actually take what they're doing and incorporate that again, thinking about your strengths and what you're interested in, and find some new and innovative way and create some career that didn't exist 10 years ago, right? But talking to people helps you think through ideas. So does reading and research, right? You're on your phones, you're on Google, research things, go on the sites, think about this. You're on Instagram, maybe you're on Facebook, you're on Twitter. There are companies, there are game changers and movers and shakers working in industries on those platforms too. Sometimes if you're thinking, oh, I'm a creative person and I would love to help influence people and go into something with social media, do a hashtag on marketing in Instagram and see what movers and shakers are popping up in there and their career paths and their titles, right? Search the web, just Google. Google is your friend. It can be if you use it correctly, right? So use that to Google career paths and things, things based on the conversations that you have with people. And then visit. So just like informational interviewing is really important, job shadowing can also be really important. So figuring out is there someone I can hang out with? Maybe you have this interest in, becoming a veterinarian. So next time you take your dog in for his checkup, ask your veterinarian if you could hang out with them for a day and see what it's like in their role. Maybe you wear glasses and you think, well, that could be an interesting field going into optometry. So the next time you get your eyes checked, you ask that person, you ask your optometrist, can I hang out with you for a day one time and just see what it's like? And I know that's a little bit difficult in times of COVID, but a lot of people are doing virtual job shadows where they'll let you hang out with them and they'll turn on their computer and you can kind of see what they're doing while they operate through the day. And then they can take breaks and you can ask questions and you just get a nice feel for the field. So don't think just because we're in this pandemic that you can't kind of make these inroads. I said there's a takeaway. I'm a really big proponent of making sure you have something that you can walk away with. So this is a sheet that I'm going to put in the chat box so that you can have it. And I'll put the link in the chat when Nakia starts talking, and the link will take you to a Google Sheet that you can make a copy of, and you can go through these exercises. And so it's a career notes page. It's 3 pages, as you can see, spread across the screen. And the first page has some links that can help you, for those of you who aren't ready to necessarily talk to people or shadow people. Khan Academy College Careers has a bunch of career videos across all different industries. So you're able to click on that and watch a video of someone talking about what they do, how they got into that work, what they like about it, what they don't like about it, things like that. The Bureau of Labor Statistics Student Resources has a page where you can also watch some videos and learn about careers. Career One Stop, and then of course, because it's UD, our UD Major Finder, which has a sampling of all, well, not a sampling, it has all 150 plus degrees that you can get at UD and shows you what people do with those degrees, what fields that you can go into, what interest areas, graduate schools, things like that. The second page of this sheet has links to articles about students at UD or recent alum who have gone on and done really interesting things. And I curated this list based on people that had been doing what I want you all to do, which is they thought about what am I passionate about? What am I good at? And then what's out there. And you can see the different career paths that they took. So definitely click on all of those links. And then those questions. So just like we went through those exercises with those 3 slides, that's your fake homework assignment for me. I call it self-work because I'm not going to check it. I'm not going to find who you are and hunt you down and see if you did it. But it is a great opportunity for you to maybe fill this out and talk to your guidance counselor, talk to your family member, talk to someone that you admire and say, help me answer, I'm trying to figure out this, because sometimes you don't know what your strengths are. So maybe you ask your friends, what do you think I'm really good at? And they may say, well, you're really bossy. Maybe that's management, right? Or you're really good at math because you're always the person that someone's bringing their assignment to, or writing or art. So document what your strengths are, document what you're passionate about, document what you think the world needs, and document what you want to know more about so that you can do that research. And then the last page is a list of to-dos and a link to some other resources that could be helpful. The last thing I'm going to leave you with is this picture. I love this picture of Michael Phelps in a race, obviously winning. And there's two things I think are important. Notice he's not worrying about what the other guy is doing. That swimmer that's behind him is looking at him instead of staying focused, right? And then he's forward facing, he's going to win. That's what I want you to do. Don't focus on what other people are doing, except to learn and ask questions. But your friend might have a career path already planned, and don't feel guilty that you don't. Or you have one and you feel bad because your friends don't. Like, that's not important. Everybody's journey is different. We're all in our own maze. We're all going to come out on the other side. Nakia.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rachel. That was great. As you were speaking, I was thinking about my own journey, right? And I've been in education now for 16 years, and I went to college to become an elementary education teacher. And here I am working in higher education, and I absolutely love what I do, right? So everything, Rachel, that you were speaking about earlier in terms of interest and having a passion and understanding what you love is so key. I always say, and you probably heard this, some of you here on the line this afternoon have heard, you want to wake up and love what you do. You spend so much time at a job, right? When you think about the number of hours that you're there at that facility, that you gotta love it. So Rachel, thank you for sharing that. It just made me think about my own educational journey as you were speaking. But for all of you here, a couple of things as you hear this, right? And you're beginning to think about, here's what I'm interested in. Here's what I want to do. Here are my passions. I know I want to be a nurse. I know I want to be an engineer. I want to be a teacher. I want to be a counselor. I want to be a vet, whatever that is, right? Now, the next step is that where is that place that can really assist and support you in becoming what that is that you're interested in becoming? Of course, you probably already know this. I'm going to mention the University of Delaware, right? You see that on the screen. Now, I'm very big. You got to go where's the right fit, okay? You got to do that. But at the same time, I have to mention UD. With us being here in the state, Research One institution, there are a number of different pathways to the University of Delaware to help you pursue whatever that particular interest is that you would like to pursue. I've worked at 6 other institutions, all wonderful places. However, I gotta say, UD, we have a lot of different majors, which I'm going to point to in just a second, but I just want to point out one thing here. There are options and pathways for you. You can come to our Newark campus. You can go to our Associates in Arts program. You can enroll in a program at our Georgetown campus. We have our Margaret Rowling School of Nursing, which is an amazing program for those of you who are thinking about becoming nurses. You can come to UD for all 4 years, or you can start there and go there for 3 years and finish out your last year online. We have an Associate in Arts program, an elementary education teacher program. So there's a lot of different pathways as you think about your journey to UD. The last thing I'm just going to throw out here, and Rachel, if you want to go to the next slide for me, please, is that you're going to notice at the University of Delaware, we have over 150 majors and a lot of different industries. And I will say this too, Rachel mentioned earlier about the majors finder. Here is the link, or the website, I should say, for that. You can absolutely go to this website and start searching. That is key. I hope you heard that today. You got to search, got to put your time in to do your part, right? So we have a lot of majors that certainly fit the interests of many students. And the other unique thing is that not only do we have these majors, they're extremely reputable, taught by amazing faculty, and our students who end up leaving the University of Delaware become alum and at some major companies and organizations. They just do. Our facts are there. We have all that information in terms of UD, really graduating alum who are working at organizations and companies all over the world. all over the world. So that is so key. I know we have some questions. I wanted to make sure we allow just a few moments here at the end to wrap this up, but I do see that there are some questions that came in via the chat. So can't wait to address some of the questions here.
You guys are the perfect way to end this event because you're sending us off into the weekend with so much great positive energy. It's so clear that you're both passionate about education and what you do and promoting the great school that you work on behalf of. So thank you for sharing all that information with us. I know I learned a lot in particular. So getting kind of right into the Q&A, because I know we don't have too much time left. The first question we have from a student is, what makes a state school or University of Delaware a different kind of collegiate experience, maybe to a smaller school?
I'll answer that in 20 seconds if I can. What makes it different than a smaller school? Is that what I'm hearing? The environment? So, and I worked at a small private institution, extremely different. So a couple of things that are going to happen is that at a state school, like the size of University of Delaware, over 20,000 students, will you get larger classroom sizes? Kind of, sort of, but not really. You're still in an environment where the classroom sizes are small. But the difference is this. One is that you will have, and not saying this doesn't happen at a small school, because it does. A place like University of Delaware is that we do attract students from all over the world. Do we attract students from our state? Absolutely, right? Without a doubt, we are in our hometown here. In addition to that, we attract students both domestically, right? Like internationally. So your networking screen, the ability to be at a research one institution, to work with faculty, to meet students from all over the world, literally all over the world, is going to be here at the University of Delaware. Small private schools, yes, you get that, but here's the thing, keyword small, a little smaller environment, right? I love our small private schools. I work for one, but the culture is different in terms of how big your network is at some of those institutions. And I answered that in 20 seconds. I could keep going on, but we don't have time. No.
That was a perfect explanation. So the next question is definitely kind of in line with career services, I would assume. And it's, what degree programs have the best conversion to jobs from University of Delaware?
So that's a tough question to answer because that changes all the time. And so the way that you can figure that out, I'm going to share a link to a site that you can do some research, because there are 150 degrees at the University of Delaware. And so when you think about 150 degrees and people in their majors and all of that, you can easily find that information. I'm just going to click on one. I think I'm still sharing my screen, and I'm going to the career outcomes page. So I'm going to put this link in the answer.
Perfect.
Box. What tips do you have? No, wait, where is that? I'm going to type the answer here. And this link is for the chemical engineering one, but you can change it. So you just scroll down and you change it to all. You can put in any of our degrees here, and you can see the outcomes for each degree at the University of Delaware. So for the last 5 years, 419 people have graduated from the University of Delaware with the chemical engineering degree. 348 of them told us where they were going. So not everybody tells us, but we have a pretty good rate. That's a 96% rate. And then 94% went to work for profit. You can see 72% were employed, 24% continued their education. You could do this for every major. So I do encourage students to, and this link is actually in that homework page that I linked earlier. So when I answered the question, about figuring out paths, I put a link in there, and that link will take you to the career notes that I was talking about. And you can actually click on the major finder here and put in any of your majors that you're thinking about at UD and see what the outcomes are. How many students went to college or graduate school? How many went to jobs? What kind of jobs did they go into? For profit, not for profit? You'll see the company names and the entry level titles. So you can get all that information through that site.
Fantastic. Yeah, you've supplied a lot of great resources. So everyone check in the chat box. Make sure you're accessing those that Rachel and Nakia are providing. Let's ask one final question. I think this will be a quick one to answer. Does University of Delaware have an ESL program, or maybe anything specifically in regards to ESL?
We do. So we have our English Language Institute. So for students who are interested in an ESL program or receiving support, well, it's two different, and I want to make sure I'm answering this correctly. In terms of ESL, as though if you want to teach ESL, the quick answer is yes. In terms of ESL, if you actually need the support, the answer to that is also yes. So it will be through our English Language Institute if you're looking for the support. If you're looking to actually pursue a program in ESL for teaching, that will be through our College of Education. So great question.
Fantastic. Well, that's a great way to wrap up then our final session before wrap up with Tallow with the University of Delaware. Rachel and Nakia, it was such a pleasure having you this afternoon. Thank you for sharing your great university with our attendees who are in the classroom, at home, all just really excited to learn more about the school you represent. So thank you so much for joining us and have wonderful weekends.
Thanks for having us. Take care, everyone.